Hello and welcome to Authors at Your Library with Cate Holahan and Vanessa Lillie. My name is Kathy Condon-Betcher and I am the manager of fiction, film, and music at the Central Library. I'm pleased to wear my fiction hat tonight to talk with our authors about their work and their books. The St. Louis Public Library has locations throughout the city and staff are eager to help you. I invite you to visit any one of our 16 libraries and ask us to tell you about your library and what we can offer you. Tonight, I'm pleased to introduce to you our authors, Cate Holahan and Vanessa Lillie, here to discuss their newest books. Ms. Holahan is celebrating the release of her 3 lives, and Ms. Lillie's most recent book is For the Best. Cate Holahan is the USA Today best-selling author of The Widower's Wife, Lies She Told, Dark Turns, and One Little Secret. An award-winning journalist and former television producer, her articles have appeared in Business Week, the Boston Globe, the Record newspaper, and on many websites. She is a member of the Authors Guild, Sisters in Crime, and Crime Writers of Color. She is a graduate of Princeton University and lives in New Jersey with her husband, 2 young daughters, and a sometimes good dog. Vanessa Lillie is a Rhode Island-based thriller writer whose breakout debut, Little Voices, received starred reviews from Publishers Weekly and Library Journal, and was an Amazon bestseller. Her second thriller, For the Best, was named a Pop Sugar Best Book. She's a member of the What Cheer Writers Club and weekly columnist for the Providence Journal. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Cate Holahan and Vanessa Lillie.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. And if you're watching afterwards, thanks for clicking on our video. We're happy to be here. And I'm especially happy to be here with the wonderful Vanessa Lillie, whose work I admire, and also who I am working on another book with, Amazon Audible. So it's great to be here. So I figured we would just start maybe giving you a bit of an overview of our latest books that I think we're both really excited about. And then we would talk a little bit about writing and life and writing life in the pandemic and other such subjects. So I'll start. Her 3 Lives, which is my latest. It came out April 20th, excuse me. I don't even know the month anymore. Came out April 20th. And it tells the story of Greg Hamlin, a 52-year-old successful architect who is engaged to Jade Thompson, a 32-year-old interior designer who runs a successful blog, kind of talking about Caribbean lifestyle, home design, and culture. And they're about to embark on this new chapter in both of their lives when there's a home invasion during which Greg is hit over the head with a crowbar and suffers a traumatic brain injury. And so he plasters his home with all of these smart devices that so many of us have, you know, the Nest Cams and the Ring doorbells and the assistants, everything to kind of try and keep his home safe while he's recovering from this injury. And as he's glued to the feeds, he starts spying on his new fiancée, first inadvertently and then more deliberately, as he begins to wonder, did she have anything to do with this break-in that nearly cost him his life? And he's kind of aided in these suspicions by his adult children from a prior marriage, who are kind of wondering, what does this younger woman actually want with him? So that's the genesis of the story. And Vanessa, you take yours away.
Yeah. So my debut was Little Voices. You can kind of see it behind me. And then my most recent one is For the Best. So Little Voices it was my debut, and it was kind of my story around motherhood and the kind of dark corners of being a mom and your identity changing, as well as postpartum complications, and all of that's wrapped into solving a murder mystery. And my most recent book, For the Best, is the story of a woman who is the only suspect in a murder. And so she has to go out and kind of find the real killer to prove herself innocent. But she also has a pretty serious drinking problem. And the night of the murder, she was blackout drunk and doesn't remember, and was also seen with the victim. So this novel is set in Providence as well, which is where I live now, though I used to live in Kansas City, Missouri for 4 years. I went to college at Rockhurst, and I was talking to Cate earlier about how I've been to St. Louis several times, went to a journalism awards conference there. And I mean, obviously I've seen the Arch, stuff like that. But my books are set in Providence, where I live now. And this one kind of explores not only themes around generational privilege, but also addiction. And it also centers around a vlog, which is also kind of a tech thing, which Cate and I kind of have in common, because she starts a vlog to prove herself innocent and records her crime, records her investigation of the crime. So that's kind of fun. Cate, every time you talk about your book, I think of Rear Window. Have you kept hearing people allude to that?
I think he is trapped. He's not in a wheelchair, but he really can't leave the house without like a helmet on his head and all this stuff. So it is like that, but you're right. He's glued to these video screens rather than the window.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit more intimate than that. Instead of Rear Window, where you're watching the potential murder happen to your neighbor across the street, this is in his house. It's what he's seeing in his house. Actually, indicating that he should be scared for his life, right?
Right. And as a writer, the stakes are higher because it's like his own life, his own fiance. Whereas in Rear Window, it's, kind of the couple across the street. But then he gets a little too involved.
Right.
We just watched it probably a couple of months ago, and I hadn't seen it in so long. And like Grace Kelly is just dazzling in her clothes. It was super fun to watch. But yeah, I love that every time you talk about your book, I'm like, it's like a very modern, higher stakes Rear Window.
Well, thank you. And it reminds me a little like there's The Woman in the Window, which is coming out, which was very like an update of Rear Window. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I enjoyed that book a lot. I think that one to me was more of an update because it had this person who was also stuck in their house looking at through the window, literally again, about what was going on, and also becomes a little too involved. Yeah. I think with this one, I was trying with Greg and his fiance to make the stakes high on both ends, that if he's wrong, and she has nothing to do with it, well, then he's just blown up this second act for himself in this relationship with someone that, really cared for him, right? And if he's not wrong, he's sleeping with the enemy, literally. So, but it's interesting talking about the vlogs, right? And how we incorporate technology into our books, because I think, there's always a joke, right, with writers of, what did you do with the cell phone? Since we don't want our characters to be able to call 911 and have the cavalry come in. So you got to break the cell phone. They throw away the cell phone. It falls out of the car. You're always trying to get rid of the cell phone. And then I thought, well, also, you can lean into it too and just go, well, what happens when not only is it the cell phone, it's the security cameras and the CCTV and the drones, and it's just everything you can't get away from, right? And I think like having a vlog too, with now you've invited all of these strangers into this person's life, right? And then who's watching it, how is that blurring that line thanks to technology, complicating the mystery?
And even though it's, sort of unvarnished, but at the same time, I think in both cases, you take your own baggage to the screen. And so your perspective is very skewed based on your already drawn opinions or conspiracy theories or kind of what you were expecting. So it's like very interesting, I think, creatively, to not only present what's on the screen, but then present how your character interprets it.
Right. I think it's also interesting because I think a lot of people kind of don't know what to make of these new media careers, like the influencers and the vloggers and the true crime podcasters. They kind of don't know, is this a career or is this, somebody that's just at home? Is it a hobby? Right. And some and some people make a lot of money from this, and it really is kind of like the new media properties. But because that perception exists out there, it's kind of interesting as a thriller writer, right, to have a person with this type of career, and people don't know what to make of them. Whereas it's kind of a little bit more self-explanatory when someone has a career where it's like, I'm an accountant. Everybody is like, that is a real 9-to-5 job. I get how that works. That makes sense. But with these, there's always that thought of, well, is this person successful? Are they working? How much, they're trying to figure out. And then from that, we read in a lot about people's jobs, and we try and determine how hardworking they are based on what kind of a job. We all assume that neurosurgeons, or for example, are brilliant and probably work pretty hard. And after watching some neurosurgery videos for the research on this book, I can say I certainly would never be able to be a neurosurgeon. I mean, I do think that if you ever had an evil one, it would be easy to flip to murder, because they can't have a stomach. They have to they just have to be able to go, this is life.
Mm-hmm.
But so I like that. I like kind of including some of these new careers, and then we're playing with that expectation of the audience, where they don't know how to feel about this. How do they feel about somebody who is turning to a vlog to help prove their innocence? And is that there's something kind of obscene about that, right? And it's the same thing. How do you feel about somebody who maybe in another lifetime would have written a bunch of articles for like House Beautiful and all of these home decor magazines that no longer exist or don't pay the way they used to because of all the competition for advertising. So now they're in this position where they're sharing stuff about their life as well as their aesthetic, and it's kind of this whole mishmash. But that's how people make a living in this new day and age.
Mm-hmm. And I think to the point about what an accountant's day is like, I think for a lot of writers, it's fun to explore different jobs and like research them or interview people. And, some of these more recent influencer type jobs are really interesting, and they like bring up interesting questions about like privacy and like how you sell yourself online, and like how people will perceive you or how you want to be perceived, which, we do in any job. We get dressed up because we want to look nice, whatever. But, it's this, especially when people bring their like families into it as well. And I'm very interested in, kind of how that manifests, and also like, what kind of person is drawn to that work and would, have themselves out there for, public consumption.
Yeah. And also because it never leaves. It's not like, you said something and it's going to disappear. I mean, it can be brought up 10 years later, right? Or
Yeah.
Hey, more than that. How do you navigate it yourself? Because I know, I'm not very good with social media. I'll put it right out there. I tend to treat it like a billboard. It's like, okay, this is what's happening this week, and see y'all later. And I have a friend who is in public relations, and she's always telling me, well, you have to share more. You're like, your thoughts about the day, and I'm like, and I just don't have that kind of an opinion of myself. I'm like, who wants to hear my thoughts about the day? Like, my writing's good after I work it over for 6 months and have had multiple drafts. I don't think anyone wants me unedited, but it's a hard thing, because then and where do you draw that line? And I know for me, and I think Vanessa, for you too, a lot of our life when we're not sitting down writing is being moms. Right. And we don't want to infringe upon our kids' privacy, but at the same time, it's a lot of what we do. And,
and it's, a lot of what's shared too, I think, that's, like writing a book is actually really boring. I mean, it's exciting to the author, I guess. It's hard for the author. But, maybe there's some research that you could share or something, but for the most part, it's like in here. So it's like, you have to look around and think, what else can I talk about? What else can I share? Yeah. And so often it's kids, or what we're reading, which is always fun to share.
Right.
I know, but the social media piece is really, it's very interesting right now, because there is, I think it was that way even with with technology, different guns, different weapons, things mostly the government had or whatever. Anyway, but now, the technology is impacting everything, every aspect of your life, from tracking people, tracking kids, being watched, all of those privacy issues. So it's a lot of fodder for writers.
Oh, sure. And I think it'll be interesting. I mean, we have that to explore that tension of privacy, but then I think we also have so many new cell phone problems, right? It's like, well, not only could you call the police, but why couldn't they just find where the person is, right? I mean, they can track down where their phone last emitted a signal from, right? And also why there's so many cameras between all the residential cameras that are on people's houses, but on top of that, CCTV and business cameras. Yeah. And so it's like, well, how, I was writing a scene recently where the person needs to take the victim's car out and kind of dump it. And I was thinking, how could they possibly do that, right? There's cameras everywhere, like they're going to catch the license plate. So the level of criminality I have to aspire to just to get my plots to work.
It's so complicated. Yeah, like you get on the highway, they get your plates, or you go down the street, they get your plates. Like, yeah.
I mean,
you gotta be sneaky.
You really do. I mean, it's making me think, not that I would ever do this for real. I just mean, it makes you kind of, right. It makes you have to think like a criminal and go, well, how would someone get away with this? Or at least think that they had done enough that they could get away with it, mm-hmm. right? And to come up with those kind of plots. And it's, either that or one of the ways we get around it is we set it in a different time period, right, Vanessa?
That's right. We worked on a book that'll be coming out probably early 2022 called Young Rich Widows. It's an Audible original. So it's going to just start as an audiobook, which will be fun. And we set it in 1980s Providence. And so we didn't have to really worry about cell phones and, people being tracked too much, which was fun. And also the fashion was pretty great.
What? Yeah. That was fun. I wonder what people are going to do going forward also with the pandemic. We talked about this before, like, do they mention it? Do they not? Right? Is it, or are all the books going to be historical going forward another couple of years until we figure out whether it should be mentioned in contemporary fiction?
Right. Everything's like 2019 and 2022, basically. Just this middle part didn't happen. I mean, there's definitely, I can't think of it right now, but I do know, people are using it in clever way. Well, in fact, Cate, maybe I'm thinking of you. In your next book, you kind of use some of the pandemic in the plot, right?
Yeah, I do.
I love that.
I hope it goes well. I'm hoping that by summer 2022, when the book is supposed to come out, that people have been removed just enough from daily pandemic where they don't mind it being a backdrop to a murder mystery. But it is interesting because the characters have masks, right? Which changes the writing a bit, because everything that you write, you can't really rely on expressions like their face fell. Well, how would you know? And so that's been a challenge, but the idea is the eviction moratorium. And so this family is renting out a couple of rooms in their home because the husband was a chef and a restaurateur, and his restaurant closed. And so they start to think that the person they're renting to might have been involved in a murder of their dear friend, but they can't evict her, and maybe she also had nothing to do with it. That's the fun about doing these psychological thrillers, is that you're never quite sure who the protagonist and the antagonist is. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it switches deliberately, which is fun. But yeah, so we will see if it makes it in that way, or if they're like, we don't think people are ready for the pandemic. We'll just make that the restaurant was closing and, they can't kick her out for another reason. And who knows? We'll see how it goes.
I think it's really clever. I think it's going to be great.
Thank you. I hope so, because I start grad school in September and I really don't have time to rewrite this thing soup to nuts.
I love, talk a little bit about that. It's so cool. Cate is an award-winning screenwriter and she's starting at NYU this fall.
Yeah, I decided I would apply to Tish's screenwriting program, and I really wanted to be able to write. Um, I wanted to be able to write a variety of kinds of stories, and also to maybe adapt some of my own work. And so I thought, kind of, why not apply and see how it goes. And I'm a little nervous as it gets closer, because not only will I be one of the oldest people there, but I think people are going to be like, is that a side part? But I'm looking forward to it. And I think hopefully it's fun, and hopefully my family doesn't completely fall apart while mommy's like doing her own homework. We shall see.
No,
I've been prepping them for. I was like, okay, well,
cool.
competition. Yeah. Who does their homework first? Who gets the better grade? I'm getting all A.
Right.
I didn't tell them that grad school is pass fail yet. Kind of a different standard.
That's so cool though. I'm really excited for you. I think that's going to be really fun.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm definitely looking forward to it. And yeah, I think it'll also, you have to take playwriting too. It's not just screenwriting. Like you have, like a third of the program has to be playwriting. So I don't have too much experience with plays. So that'll be interesting. I keep thinking I might want to try and do an updated Glengarry Glen Ross, but with all women, and they would sell homes, not like corporate real estate or like big tracts of land, but it would all take place in one town, and they're all kind of competing for like the same business and the same contacts, and having like lavish parties to outdo one another. It would kind of be like toxic femininity, I think. So we'll see.
That sounds awesome.
I might try that.
I'll be in the front row.
Yeah, really? Awesome. If it gets there, I might you never know.
Whenever we just going to a play will be amazing.
Oh, won't it? Yeah, I can't wait.
Well, you're so close to New York. You get to see all the good stuff.
I did. The last play I saw was it had Michael Shannon and, oh geez, what's her name? It was Frankie and Johnny, and I'm forgetting.
Isn't it the woman who plays Felicity?
No. This woman, she's a super famous Broadway person, and unfortunately, I shouldn't be forgetting her name. Like she's huge, right? But anyway, but it was so interesting. So I don't know if you've ever seen that play, but it opens with a sex scene, right? And so imagine like you're in the second row, and it's just moaning, and Michael Shannon's going at it, and his butt's exposed, and I was not prepared because I had not read the play before, so or any of the reviews. I just knew that like it was two great people, and I was like, okay, and so so my husband and I are there, and we're like, but I mean, so after that like initial shock to like get you in it, then it's this amazing play about a relationship and kind of seizing the day. And but it was, I wonder sometimes how even some of my own work and just work in general will stand up, because the idea of this play was it was very romantic, right? It was this guy, and he's a cook, and he's kind of middle-aged, and she's middle-aged, and he's just like, you know what, I'm in love with you, like let's just go with it, like we can make this work, and she's kind of like, well, slow down, and he's like, what's the point, like life is short, when let's just end. But then she like can't kick him out of the apartment. And when it was written, it was very romantic that he was just doing whatever he could to kind of convince her. But now looking at it from, a current lens, it's like, no, she said no. She said to leave her apartment. You have to get out of her apartment. Like, right. I mean, she even threatens to call the police at one point, and he's like still giving her like the hard sell. And so it was an interesting thing to watch with this lens, and kind of have to rewind and go, okay, this was taking place in like early 80s, everything's been consensual so far. He's trying to be romantic, but all I could think of was, ooh, you gotta leave.
Like if they updated it, it would, have a different tone.
I mean, if they yes, it absolutely would. In fact, well, it would either be one of two things. Either he would remain the wonderful, nice guy that he is, in which case he'd have to leave right away and the play would be over. Or, you know, he would stay, in which case he would not be such a nice guy. And then I think, yeah, you'd have a thriller. So maybe that'll be my other one.
Someone ends up dead. You gotta do the end.
I get up in Frankie and Johnny and it'll just end horribly.
That's right. It was just like Frankie and Johnny are dead. Is the
yes.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's interesting. I think, you know, I think as writers, like, right, Vanessa, we always want to kind of, we write what we do and it's great, but then you also want to kind of explore other kinds of stories. And then how do you do that and not, you know, not erode your brand? Do you then respond to like 10 different names where it's like Vanessa and, you know, Elizabeth, and you're still looking around because of one book?
Yep. So true. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, so I don't know. We'll see. I am excited about kind of how Audible's created this other market, you know, because I think we get to tell different kinds of stories that I mean, I do think that our stories right now work as Audible stories, obviously, but I think, you know, you can really, when you know you're going to get 4 different actresses, right, say, okay, well, I'm going to have 4 point of view characters, and you'll obviously be able to keep it straight, because not only do they have different names and everything, but it'll be a different voice doing it. So that just aids in a way that I think if it's just in print, the reader has to work a little harder to keep track. Oh yeah, whose name was on the, you know, was on the beginning of the chapter. And I do think our characters sound so different anyway, the way they speak and act, that it's easy to keep track, but it just adds another dimension of why it would be easy to keep track.
It does.
You know?
And it's just such again, there's so many reasons why it's good that we are in a global pandemic now, because of like Zoom, for example, but also audiobooks have been, for me, I have had a lot of trouble actually sitting and reading. It's just been really difficult for me, but audiobooks have been great. And they are so immersive, and they actually, to me, feel a little bit like going to a play because of the voice work and that they are actors. So it's, I think, lucky at least that we also have that option. And libraries use Libby, is it called Libby, the borrowing service? Yeah.
Yeah, it's through Overdrive. Yes.
That's so cool. Like, it's just, you know, you can access all those, and, you know, now they're getting like big actors to do them, and it's really cool.
Yeah, I was Pete Davidson did one.
Oh,
Really?
Yeah, I was like, I have to check that out. Like Pete Davidson doing an audiobook.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of actors. I mean, if you're kind of not acting, you know, it's like, do you have a mic? Can you read? Here you go.
I'm glad they have actors and actresses doing it, though, because it really is a different skill. I like to think that I can read my books pretty well, but, you know, I don't have the cadence, I think, where people can easily follow.
I don't think any of us do. I love it when people ask me, the 2 things they ask me that I'm always like, how talented do you think I am? Is, did you do the book cover? I'm like, no. And did you do the audiobook? I'm like, no, I'm not an actor. I'm no, you know, I love it when you read nonfiction and it's like a memoir and the person wrote, of course, but like, you don't want me reading a thriller. Like, that's not going to work for anybody. Everybody already tells me they picture me when they're reading my books, which is kind of weird. So I definitely am not going to also have my voice down there.
Yeah, I think my issue is just, you know, living in the Northeast for as long as I have, I speak pretty fast regularly. So I can only imagine what I would sound like on like 2X. They were just like, yeah.
Totally. Yeah, that's not a skill I have. That's for sure.
But I'm definitely happy other people have it, and they always make it sound so good. That's why, I mean, I guess we could do a reading to maybe, you know, give people that might click on our video a sample. Do you want to do that?
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I'd love to hear something.
Sold it so well by saying that. Why?
And so now I shall read. No, please, absolutely.
Yeah, go for it. This one's great.
Okay. So I might actually start with, I might just do chapter, what do I want to do? I'll do a bit of chapter 2, just because it's the female voice, and that way it's a little bit better than me doing Greg in the beginning of the book, and you get my fake manly voice, which I don't think will be as good as this. Anyway, so here goes. Chapter 2. Pride goeth before destruction. The proverb was one of Abigail Thompson's favorites. Growing up, Jade had heard her mother mutter it many a time after hearing that misfortune had befallen a seemingly upstanding individual. To her mom's credit, Abigail never uttered it with the smug satisfaction of some of the other churchwomen, as though she'd personally warned the poor soul that his luck would change if he didn't show God more gratitude. She tended to say it in the same tenor as an apology. Abigail regretted that heaven's standards were so impossible, but it wasn't for men to judge the laws of the Lord. The Savior didn't punish without reason. If tragedy struck a decent family, then in Abigail's mind, Jesus must have determined them insufficiently thankful for their blessings. Jade had little use for Proverbs 16:18 or any other biblical victim blaming. As far as she was concerned, the universe meted out vengeance with the precision of an atomic bomb. See, I wasn't kidding. Storms leveled cities, men and women were murdered, raped, babies died in utero. There were myriad reasons, and chief among them was being in the wrong place at the wrong time. But prayer, or lack thereof, wasn't one. She'd learned that lesson at age 7 when she'd still been a true believer, and she was certain that what had happened a week earlier had nothing to do with the divine or justice. There'd be no convincing Abigail of that, though. Jade could feel her mother's disapproving gaze boring into her back as she draped a bright orange cloth over the kitchen table. In her peripheral vision, she could see Abigail's pursed lips above the newspaper held roughly in her hands. Part of Jade wanted to tell her mother that she had no right to judge at the moment. Abigail was not the one with the fiance in the hospital. Abigail had not been attacked. But Jade had long learned that fighting with a woman who believed in preordination was pointless. Jade slipped into the neighboring kitchen. She grabbed a white plate from the cupboard and brought it beside the still sizzling cast iron skillet. The air was saturated with the smells of frying oil and fish, reminding her of Lenten Fridays as a child. She grabbed a spatula from a basket beside the stove, slipped it under the small snapper, and transferred the fish to her plate. Scales shone pink around the snapper's gelatinous eye and glowering mouth. Jade's stomach twisted with sudden revulsion. She pulled back the fridge door and dipped her head inside, sucking in the cold air to settle her stomach. Ever since the attack, the weirdest things set off waves of nausea. Jade pressed the heel of her hand into her flat stomach until the feeling subsided. She then yanked the pickling jar from the fridge's top shelf and shut the door. Twisting off the metal lid released the trapped fumes of fermenting Scotch bonnet peppers. Jade's eyes watered as she grabbed a spoon from a drawer beside the stove and scooped out several slices of carrots, bell peppers, and ginger root, spreading them like jam across the top of the fish. Even with her blurred vision, she could tell the plate would look pretty on the orange backdrop. She carried her culinary painting to the table and placed it in the center of the fabric, taking a moment to admire how the cloth's color highlighted the carrots atop the fish. She returned to the kitchen for a fork and a knife, a deep purple napkin, and the flowers that she intended to take to the hospital later. A lavish arrangement with 2 bird of paradise blooms emerging from a nest of violet orchids. As she staged the area around the plate, Jade could feel her mother's anger intensifying, heating the air between them like a blast from an opened oven. She tried to ignore it, focusing only on the still life framed in her iPhone screen and the sumptuousness of the food at the photo center. The pictures looked appetizing, although a tad too brassy thanks to the afternoon light streaming through her mother's west-facing window. The right filter would tone down the color. Jade grabbed the fork and carefully peeled a morsel off the fish's side. She stabbed it along with a bright yellow pepper and then brought the lot up to her coral-painted mouth, smiling as if unaware of the cell phone camera clicking in her extended left hand. Her mother jostled the newspaper. "Sweetheart, for shame." Jade placed the bite back on the plate. "It's been nearly a week. If I don't put up a post soon, I'll lose followers." "Lose them then." The paper smacked against the table. "Your husband-to-be is in a coma." Abigail leaned forward in her seat, thick biceps bulging over her folded hands, an arm wrestler waiting for a challenger. Her hair was pulled off her face in a low ponytail. The style, coupled with the fact that Abigail lacked a single wrinkle on her walnut skin, made her appear to be Jade's older peer rather than her parent. Jade placed her phone on the table. "You don't think I know where he is?" Abigail stiffened. Jade reminded herself of the respect due to the woman who had birthed and raised her alone, regardless of how absurdly judgmental she might be acting. She lowered her voice. "I've been there plenty since it happened. Greg doesn't know that, though. He's not responsive, and he may never become so. You want me to hold the round-the-clock vigil until the doctors say it's time to make a decision?" Jade's eyes watered more, a drizzle threatening a true shower. She pushed the pepper-covered fish farther from her face. "I can't lose my livelihood, too." Her speech did little to soften her mother's expression. Abigail gestured toward the plate. So you're gonna what? Share a picture of you smiling beside an escovitch fish? Her mother's accent, muted from 4 decades in Brooklyn, became more prominent when she was annoyed. Abigail would have slipped into a Jamaican patois, Jade bet, had the recent home invasion not demanded some extra show of sympathy for her child. Abigail Thompson would never see the blog as anything other than her daughter's indulgence. As a nurse, her mom believed that the value one provided others should be physically measurable, obvious in the reduced fever of the infected patient or the stitched arm of the fall victim. Jade provided enjoyment calculated by an amorphous formula involving clicks and time spent on pages. Clicks could add up to real money, though. The blog brought in $6,000 a month in advertising, enough to support her as she continued to work out how a BFA in design could yield steady contract work. In her mother's defense, Jade supposed that she'd played down the site's importance in the beginning, dismissing it as a hobby. In truth, Jade had always hoped to build an audience. When she'd installed the advertising widget on her site, she'd silently planned to gain enough of a following to pay off her student loans, a sum that had remained undented by bartending and sporadic modeling gigs. Jade suspected that her mother secretly thought the whole enterprise sinful, albeit in a venial fashion. In her mother's eyes, Life in Color profited off of bragging and frivolity. It probably encouraged idolatry by diverting attention from God to home decor and other vain pursuits. You honestly think telling the world about your lunch is a good use of your time when your fiance is eating from a tube? The words stung. Fresh tears welled in Jade's eyes along with a recent image of Greg, his head bandaged and his neck braced. A plastic tube ran into his open mouth beneath thick white tape hiding his thin lips. His skin, always pale, had the powdery appearance of albinism. Jade glanced at the graying fish on the plate. Whatever morsel of hunger she felt disintegrated. Why don't you have it? I can't eat. So I'll stop there. But that gives you a bit of a flavor of some of the characters. It was fun because I got to draw upon some of my own culture. I'm half Jamaican and half Irish American. So I got to, and I'm also a Jamaican citizen as well as an American citizen. So I got to use a little bit of patois. As Jade's mother does get angrier, she will speak in like patois proverbs, which was
Awesome.
Which was fun. Yeah. I really enjoyed the character of the mom. She's kind of this you know, she's religious, but she's like a force of a person. And my hope is that you have to wonder kind of how far she might go to protect her daughter when she feels that she's not being treated well or not making good decisions. So that was one of the things in the book. But so Vanessa, you go. Love to hear.
Cool. I haven't read from this in a while. Okay. I'll just do the little bit at the beginning. Okay. I don't like to sleep naked, but drunk me doesn't negotiate. I shift against the pillow and scoot away from the strands of cool, damp hair clinging to my bare shoulders. My head throbs from the movement and will need to be dealt with, but I'm distracted by the smell of my special occasion only honeysuckle shampoo. What should be wafting my way is cigarette smoke and railed gin. I've never taken a shower before passing out. All right, and then there's a loud knock. She goes downstairs, hungover, goes downstairs, a little wobbly. After making it down the steps, I pause at the mostly open front door and stare through the glass storm door. The cable salesperson or Save the Bay petitioner has on very, very shiny black shoes, almost tap dance worthy. I'm coming, I call toward the door. My breath catches at the perfectly hemmed gray-blue pants leg with a stripe running up the side. It's a cop. I hurry the few steps to the living room to make sure my son Fitz is okay. He's lying on his stomach, brownish blonde hair sticking up as he grabs for another piece of bacon. Hey, Mom, this is my new favorite one. The farm family moved into a big house. How long has Dad been gone? I say, glancing through the glass door at the cop. Maybe for one farm family video. Our milk is stinky. He said he'd bring me a treat. Jesus Christ. Ethan got hit by a car. I bolt over to the door. Officer, please, my son is inside. Can we talk? I step into his personal space before he can answer. The cop looks about 15 and a day, and he's suddenly red-faced as he stutters steps backward. He's completely off the porch, like a wind-up toy when I see he's not alone. A bald man, freshly peeled off a Mr. Clean bottle, steps forward with much more confidently in his ill-fitting suit and decent tie. He wipes at his face in the July morning sun. I'm Detective Frank Ramos, he says. You're Juliet Worthington Smith? I am, I say, the panic only heightened seeing two of them here. What happened? Is it my husband? He went to get milk? One of the detective's palms goes up. It's not him. We need you to identify something for us, if you don't mind. I swallow thickly, feeling the sweat rolling down my chest. The smell of smoke from last night floats up from my too padded bra. Sure, I managed to say. Do you know this object? The detective asks as he waves the uniformed cop forward. The kid cop holds up my red leather Celine wallet and a plastic bag marked evidence. Oh. I shake my head, embarrassed tingles spreading all over my body as if I'd been caught. I must have left it. I try to remember the end of the night. Did you find my wallet on Hope Street? I point in that direction, but realize a lost wallet wouldn't bring a cop and a detective to my house. Where was it? Your wallet was next to a body, the detective says. The body of a person we believe was murdered last night. What? I close my eyes and brace myself on the porch rail. All the blood has dropped to my feet. Who? I'd like to bring you into the station for questioning, the detective says. What? I say again as my vision blurs. You cannot be serious. I mean, who was killed? Do I even know them? Why don't you get your phone and come with us? He says softly, almost too nice. That's what cops do at first, my dad told me once. Act like they care. Then they either get what they want, which means you're either tossed aside or tossed into jail. I blink at the evidence bag in the young officer's hand. My chest aches for whoever is dead, but I won't lose sight of what it means to have a cop knock on my door. I need to remember how to act, remember how to protect myself and my family. Now is not a good time, I say and stand up. You will get a statement from me as soon as possible. Now is better, Detective Ramos widens his stance and ambles forward, as if he's about to cuff me. You will get a statement, I say firmly, as he continues to approach me, after I speak to my lawyer. At the mention of counsel, a vein throbs on his shiny head. I'll need that statement very soon, Mrs. Worthington Smith, or I come in a cruiser with the lights on. No need to threaten me, I say, liking the spike of anger instead of sadness. His jaw ticks as he steps toward me. What do you think your neighbors would say, seeing you hauled away in cuffs? God, they'd love that. You'll be hearing from me, I say with a smile we both know I don't mean. I watch Detective Ramos leave, knowing his parting comment was meant as a hypothetical threat, wondering what my neighbors would say if I was accused of murder. What he didn't realize was I already know, just like her father.
Nice.
Fun.
Yeah.
I haven't read that in so long.
Very cool. Yeah. So I think we also, in our books, we love to have the characters have these like complicated stories with their parents, right? I think I guess maybe that's also a thing with our genre. Is that they all have interesting, we try to create these characters that have that are like onions, and as you peel back, you realize that they have these interesting things in their backgrounds that have complicated their reactions to things. So
yeah, you need layers to peel away.
Yeah,
makes them interesting.
I forget, I went to a conference once and somebody said things are always more interesting when they tie back to like the character's childhood. It's like they start to have a meltdown on the subway, and then it's like, well, it's late because just like how my parents were always late picking me up from school, and it's you know, it makes you feel for the character more when it seems like it has a deep-seated genesis.
That's right, and it's sort of not their fault in some ways.
Yeah, I know. Everything is the mom's fault. That's really what it is.
Yeah, that's for sure. Always wanted to go to the mom store and get a new mom.
Yeah, I have 2 tween girls now, and I'm getting ready.
For sure. So Cate, what are you working on? So you've got another book coming out, have you started a new project? What do you got on tap?
Well, so that book I'm still writing, because that one it's due, let's see, it's due like I guess I have till August 1st, but I've been strongly told that it would be better if I could hit July 1st.
So you're writing it now. Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, so that's what I'm writing now. And then still hoping, I had written this other book hoping that Paula can, Paula's my agent, that she can sell that somewhere. So because it's a little off brand for me, it's more of a techie thriller than a psychological or domestic suspense. So
yeah, but you're so smart about tech details. I mean, you were a financial reporter, so it is in your wheelhouse too, because it's you're made for that, for sure.
I think, I mean, well, I covered tech for I guess like 3 years at Business Week, and even before I went to the financial reporting. So I kind of feel like, yeah, I guess I find it interesting, and then B, I developed this background in it, so it's always, that's the little bit of the write what I know. I don't exactly know the tech I'm writing about, but I feel comfortable in that space.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm just not comfortable necessarily figuring out how I can sell my books through TikTok. Still working on it.
I know there's so many authors on TikTok. I'm like, oh, that's so cute. We're trying.
Right. I think maybe, I mean, I could see how Bookface, which obviously all the libraries do, would be cool on TikTok, right? Just like Bookface collages. Who did Bookface best? No? See, this is why it's not what I do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'll say, as a fan of, anytime I follow any author on social media, I think whatever you want to do, the people that are reading them, I find it interesting. If what you want to talk about is something completely different than the sort of books they write about, I find that interesting. So whatever you want to do will be fine.
I'm a nosy person, so I always want to know what people are up to. And speaking of, I love Instagram. I'm on there all the time. So if you are on Instagram, come find me. I'm at Vanessa Lillie, Lillie, because I try my best on Facebook, and I'm a retweeter on Twitter, but Instagram I really enjoy. So that's where I usually am.
And you have that great new series where you're doing 'Twas the Night Before book launch.
Yes, that's right. So it's an Instagram live that Cate was my very first episode, which is so great. The night before their book comes out, we just, chat for a quick half hour, because it's just such an exciting time. So it's Twas the Night Before book launch, and you can just follow it if you follow me on Instagram. It's really fun. Cate's episode's up there too.
Yeah, I definitely recommend it. And I mean, I recommend the episode, but I recommend the whole Twas the Night Before book launch, because it seems it's very cool to also, you're getting writers at this like hyped up emotional state.
I know, it's a really nice interview, because I know myself that you're just sort of like right there. It's gentle, kind, positive, all those things.
Yes, because it's funny, I think people always go, oh, you must be so thrilled that your book is out. And you're going, no, well, this is the scary part, right? Because you basically finish the book and you go through all the edits, and then your publishing house does what it does, which is, it gets official reviews, and it figures out the cover, and anyway, it does all of that. So then you have this time where you've shifted focus to other stories. And then it all of a sudden comes out, and you're like, okay, first of all, let me refamiliarize myself with all of these characters, because I've probably been immersed in a whole new set of people and problems. But then also it's like you kind of re-fall in love with it, and now you're going to expose it to all this criticism, and some of it's going to be great, and some people are going to love it, and some people are going to be like, I didn't see where she was going with this, and that's always nerve-wracking, because obviously when you create a book, you're hoping that you're going to connect with the reader and that they're going to love it as much as you love it, right? So it is this exciting but also kind of terrifying night. The night before book launch.
That is true. It's like anything could happen, but anything could happen.
That's right. You have to be careful. There's always be like one writer that's just like, no, I'm stroking out. Like,
I totally expect that. They'd be like, actually, I can't do this. But no problem. I get it. 100%.
You see them and it's like a vein starts to like throb in their forehead.
Yes, for sure. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, thank you, Cate, so much for having us and letting us chat about our book and our new projects. And I hope that, people click and they learn more about our books, and they follow us on social media. And I have my website, www.cateholahan.com. So that's about like Ola and then Han, which I found is the easiest way to break up an Irish name.
Perfect. Yes, I really appreciate your time tonight. You are both just incredible presenters. wonderful, so smart. I really enjoy it. I do want to remind people that they can find copies of the book at St. Louis Public Library. I was unable to get my hands on any copies because they're all checked out. So that's good news.
Yay.
I know, I love it. So that's wonderful. So St. Louis Public Library and Left Bank Books is selling copies as well, and signed copies, because I know that you both sent book plates ahead of time. So if anybody wants a signed copy, they can visit Left Bank Books too. Thank both of you so much. What a fun night.
Thanks a lot, Kathy.
Oh, thank you, Kathy, for having us.
I
Thanks,
really
Vanessa.
Thank you.